"Marry the fat one, Papa." Those cruel words rang out in a dusty church hall, and the whole town laughed. The fat bride was mocked, shamed before everyone, her father's voice cutting her deeper than any knife. But then silence. A little girl stepped forward, her bonnet slipping back, her voice trembling with innocence. "Can she be my mom?" In that moment, the whole town froze. A widower's child reached for the woman no one wanted, and suddenly the future of 3 broken souls hung in the balance. Whispers turned to gossip, and gossip turned to venom. Some said she wanted his land. Others swore no decent preacher would bless them. And behind closed doors, her own kin called her a burden best cast away. Yet around the lamplight table, a bond was growing, a bond that could either save them or destroy them. Would the mocked bride risk everything to claim love at last? Or would the weight of shame and rumor tear her new family apart before it even began? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now, and if this story speaks to you. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The harvest moon hung low over the Railtown Church Hall, casting long shadows across the packed dirt street. Inside, fiddle music and laughter spilled through open windows into the autumn evening. The scent of apple pies and cinnamon filled the air as families gathered for the social, their boots thumping against wooden floorboards in time with the music. Martha Keating sat alone on a hard wooden bench, her fingers nervously smoothing the folds of her blue calico dress. She'd spent hours sewing it, hoping the careful stitches might draw attention away from her size. But the whispers followed her anyway, cutting sharper than any needle. "Land's sake, she takes up half that bench by herself," someone muttered, followed by poorly hidden snickers. Martha kept her eyes fixed on her lap, pretending not to hear. The bench creaked as others shifted away, leaving an empty space around her that felt wider than the prairie itself. Her father's voice carried across the room, loud and cruel despite its joking tone. "Hey boy," he called to her brother, nudging him with an elbow. "Marry the fat one, Papa, she's the only one left no man wants." The laughter that erupted was like a thunderclap, echoing off the walls and drilling into Martha's heart. Hot tears welled in her eyes as she caught sight of young women hiding smirks behind their fans. Even the fiddler seemed to falter for a moment, the music wavering before picking up again. Martha's chest tightened until she could barely breathe. She stood quickly, her skirts rustling as she pushed past the crowd toward the door. No one reached out to stop her. No one called her name. They simply parted like water around a stone, their cruel amusement following her retreat. The cool night air hit her face as she burst through the church doors. Her boots clattered down the wooden steps until she collapsed against them, pressing her hand to her mouth to muffle her sobs. The music from inside seemed to mock her now, its cheerful notes a stark contrast to her misery. "Lord," she whispered between ragged breaths, "why did you make me this way? Why can't I be like the others?" As Martha struggled to compose herself, a horse's wet snort and the creak of wagon wheels broke through the evening quiet. The Zook family's horse cart approached slowly, its lantern swaying gently with each step. Dale Zook sat straight-backed on the driver's bench, his broad-brimmed hat casting deep shadows across his serious face. Beside him, little Anna Zook bounced excitedly, her white prayer cap gleaming in the moonlight. "Papa, look at all the lights," Anna exclaimed, pointing to the glowing windows of the church hall. "Do you think they have penny candy inside?" "We shall see, kind," Dale replied softly, his Pennsylvania Dutch accent distinct but gentle. He guided their horse to a hitching post, his movements deliberate and unhurried. As they climbed down from the cart, Dale's keen eyes noticed Martha's huddled form on the steps. He saw how she turned her face away, trying to hide her tears, and noted the cruel smirks visible through the church windows. His own wife's passing had taught him well the sharp edge of loneliness, and something in Martha's defeated posture stirred his compassion. Martha heard their approaching footsteps and tried to make herself smaller, wishing she could disappear entirely. But little Anna had other ideas. The child skipped right up to her, seemingly blind to any social awkwardness. "Why are you crying?" Anna asked directly, her small face full of concern. "Did you hurt yourself?" "Anna," Dale cautioned quietly, but Martha managed a wobbly smile. "No, little one," she answered, wiping her cheeks with trembling fingers. "Sometimes grown-ups just get sad, that's all. Papa says when we're sad, we should pray," Anna declared with 8-year-old wisdom. "And then have pie. There is pie inside, isn't there?" Despite herself, Martha felt a tiny laugh escape. "Yes, there's pie inside. I brought an apple one myself. Apple's my favorite." Anna's face lit up. She turned to her father with pleading eyes. "Can we try some, Papa, please?" Dale stood quietly for a moment, studying the scene before him. Martha's tear-stained face. The sounds of revelry from inside. The way his daughter somehow bridged the gap between them with innocent kindness. "Yeah, we can," he finally answered. "But first, perhaps Miss Keating would like a clean handkerchief?" He offered a pristine white square of cloth, careful to maintain a respectful distance. Martha accepted it with trembling fingers, touched by this simple act of dignity when she felt she had none left. Inside the church hall, the fiddles played on, and cruel laughter still echoed. But out here in the gathering dark, something else blossomed, a moment of grace. As delicate as a prairie flower pushing through hard soil. Martha clutched Dale's handkerchief, taking a steadying breath as she prepared to slip away into the darkness. The shadows between the church hall and the line of hitching posts beckoned, promising escape from the cruel laughter still drifting through the windows. But before she could take 2 steps, a small figure darted past Dale Zook's reaching hand. "Wait!" Anna called out, her quick footsteps pattering across the wooden porch. The little girl's prayer cap had slipped slightly askew in her haste, and her eyes shone with determination in the lamplight. Martha froze, uncertain. The child reached for her hand, small fingers wrapping around Martha's larger ones with surprising gentleness. Looking up at Martha's tear-stained face, Anna's expression softened with concern. "Can you be my mom?" she asked, her voice carrying clearly in the quiet night air. The words seemed to still everything, the crickets, the distant laughter, even the autumn breeze. Martha's breath caught in her throat as she stared down at the earnest little face before her. "Anna!" Dale's voice cut through the silence, deep with gentle reproach as he strode forward. "That is not appropriate," but Anna only gripped Martha's hand tighter, turning to face her father with the fierce conviction only children possess. "But Papa, I prayed for a mother. I asked God every night, and He led us here," and the creak of the church hall door interrupted her declaration. Several townsfolk had gathered in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. Martha could see Mrs. Peterson's shocked expression and hear the sudden whisper starting up. Her cheeks burned with fresh humiliation. I'm no one's mother," Martha managed to whisper, though her voice trembled. She tried to disentangle her hand from Anna's, but the child held fast. Dale stepped closer, his tall frame blocking some of the staring eyes from the doorway. "I must apologize," he said quietly. "Anna has been without her mother for 2 years now. He paused, clearly uncomfortable. "She often speaks her prayers aloud, especially about this matter." Inside the hall, the fiddler struck up a new tune, a lively reel that should have set boots stomping. But the small crowd at the door remained fixed on the tableau before them, the plain Amish widower, his determined daughter, and the woman everyone in town had just finished mocking. Martha felt caught between 2 powerful impulses. Part of her wanted to run, to flee into the darkness and hide from all these watching eyes. But Anna's small hand in hers anchored her in place, and something about the child's complete trust made her want to stand straighter, as if she could somehow become worthy of such faith. "You're crying like my old mama used to," Anna observed softly, reaching up to touch Martha's damp cheek. She said sometimes hearts get too full and leak out through our eyes. "Is your heart too full?" A sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob escaped Martha's lips. Something like that, little one. Anna, Dale said firmly, though his voice remained gentle. We must not impose on Miss Keating. Come here now. Martha carefully loosened Anna's grip on her hand, though each finger seemed reluctant to let go. Your papa's right, she murmured, managing a wobbly smile. You should go enjoy the social. I heard there's penny candy inside. But as she guided Anna back to Dale, the child's words echoed in her mind like church bells. Can you be my mom? Such a simple question, yet it stirred something deep in Martha's heart, something she'd tried to bury beneath years of ridicule and resignation. Dale took his daughter's hand, nodding respectfully to Martha. I am sorry for any distress we've caused you, he said quietly. Martha shook her head, unable to find the right words. Was it distress she felt? Or was it something else, something warmer and more frightening than mere embarrassment? The music from inside the hall seemed to mock her uncertainty, its cheerful notes a stark contrast to the tumult in her heart. She stood rooted to the spot as Dale led Anna toward the church hall entrance. The watching townsfolk finally dispersed, moving aside to let father and daughter pass, though their whispers continued. Martha remained outside, Dale's clean handkerchief still clutched in her hand, unsure whether to feel grateful or terrified for what had just transpired. Anna's innocent question hung in the autumn air like the echo of a prayer, one Martha had never dared to voice herself, now answered in the most unexpected way. As the last notes of the fiddle faded and folks began gathering their things, Martha slipped back inside the church hall. Her fingers trembled as she reached for her shawl, hung near the back door. If she could just leave quietly now, maybe people would forget about Anna's startling request. The scrape of boots on wooden floorboards made her turn. Dale Zook stood a respectful distance away, his broad-brimmed hat in his hands. The lamplight caught the silver threading through his dark hair at the temples. Miss Keating, he said softly, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. Might I have a word? Martha clutched her shawl tighter, but nodded. Something in his manner, earnest yet careful, made her stay. I feel I must explain myself, Dale continued, his voice low and measured. When I came west from Pennsylvania, it wasn't to find a wife. My goal was simple, to homestead, to farm, to raise my daughter in God's way. He paused, working his hat brim between strong fingers. But Anna, she prays every night for a mother. Martha's throat tightened. Mr. Zook, please, he interrupted gently. I'm not asking for marriage. But perhaps you might consider visiting our farm sometimes. As a friend to Anna, or to help with household matters. The hall was nearly empty now, just a few stragglers gathering dishes and moving chairs. Martha looked down at her hands, thinking of the mockery she'd endured earlier. The town already laughs at me, she whispered. Dale shifted uncomfortably. I could pay you for your help. No. Martha's head snapped up, cheeks flushing. I won't be bought, Mr. Zook. Of course not, he said quickly. I meant no offense. Their awkward moment was interrupted by Mrs. Peterson and her daughter passing nearby, their whispers carrying clearly. Look at that, the fat bride trying to buy herself a family. Martha flinched as though she'd been struck. Dale's expression darkened, but before he could speak, she raised her hand to stop him. I'll come tomorrow morning, she said quietly. Just to visit Anna, nothing more. Relief softened Dale's stern features. We would be grateful. Anna will be overjoyed. Martha wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and picked up her tin lantern. The flame inside flickered as she lit it, casting dancing shadows on the walls. She could feel the weight of stairs following her as she made her way out into the night. The walk home seemed longer than usual. Each step stirred up conflicting emotions, fear of fresh ridicule warring with the warm memory of Anna's trusting hand in hers. The lantern light bobbed ahead of her on the path, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote called to its mate. When she reached her family's ranch house, the windows were dark except for the faint glow of the sitting room fire. She opened the door as quietly as possible, but her father's voice greeted her from his chair by the hearth. "You're late," he grumbled, not looking up from his pipe. "Thought you'd left the social early." Martha hung her shawl on its peg, watching the dying embers in the fireplace. "There was a matter to discuss," she said carefully. Her father grunted in response, already losing interest. Martha sank into the chair opposite him, her mind drifting back to the church hall, to Anna's innocent question that had changed everything. "Can you be my mom?" The fire crackled softly, throwing warm light across the rough floorboards. Martha sat there long after her father had gone to bed, watching the last flames flutter and fade, wondering what tomorrow might bring. She touched her cheek where Anna's small fingers had wiped away her tears, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel something dangerous, hope. The embers glowed orange in the darkness, like the spark of possibility that had been kindled in her heart, fragile but persistent. Tomorrow she would visit the Zook farm, and whatever came after, well, that was in God's hands now. Martha woke before the roosters crowed, her hands trembling as she kneaded dough in the dim light of dawn. The familiar motion steadied her nerves while she worked butter and flour together, trying not to think too hard about the day ahead. She had promised to visit the Zook farm, and a promise was a promise. The fresh-baked loaf warmed her lap as she climbed into the wagon an hour later. Her old Mari knew the way to town, and Martha guided her past the church hall where last night's social had brought such unexpected changes. The morning sun cast long shadows across the dirt road as they turned toward the edge of town where the Zook farmstead lay. Dust billowed behind the wagon wheels, and Martha's heart beat faster with each mile marker they passed. What if this was all a mistake? But then she remembered Anna's small hands wiping her tears, and something inside her steadied. The Zook farm came into view, a modest clearing carved from the prairie's edge. Dale stood near the rough-hewn barn, straightening from his morning chores as her wagon approached. He wore the plain dark clothes of his people, but his sleeves were rolled up against the morning's work. "Miss Keating," he greeted formally, helping her down from the wagon. "We're grateful you came. I brought bread," she said softly, holding out the still warm loaf wrapped in clean cloth. Before Dale could respond, a high voice called out, "Miss Martha." Anna burst from the cabin door, her face bright with joy. The little girl wrapped her arms around Martha's waist, pressing her face into the soft folds of Martha's skirts. "You really came." Martha's throat tightened as she patted Anna's head. "Of course I did, child. I promised, didn't I?" Dale showed them around the small farmstead, the barn he'd built himself, a handful of chickens scratching in the dust, and the cabin that still needed proper chinking between its logs. Martha noticed gaps that would let in winter drafts, but held her tongue for now. Inside, the cabin was spare but tidy. A few pieces of simple furniture, a shelf of books, and a small cookstove were the main furnishings. Martha rolled up her sleeves and set about helping with breakfast, showing Anna how to stir the corn mush so it wouldn't stick. "Papa never makes it smooth like that," Anna chattered, watching closely. "Can you teach me to make bread too? And maybe pie? I love pie, but we haven't had any since." She stopped suddenly, her small face clouding. Martha gentled her voice. "Since your mama passed?" Anna nodded, stirring with renewed concentration. "Well then," Martha said, "I reckon it's high time someone taught you about pie making." Well, they ate breakfast, corn mush with fresh bread and honey. Martha couldn't help noticing how bare the pantry shelves looked. "Winter's coming," she said carefully. "Have you put up many preserves?" Dale shook his head. "We've dried some apples, but," he trailed off, clearly uncomfortable admitting his lack of knowledge. "I could show you how to preserve more," Martha offered. "There's still time to put up vegetables, and the wild plums are perfect for jam right now." Dale's eyebrows rose in surprise. "You know about such things?" "A ranch daughter learns everything about keeping food through winter," Martha replied, lifting her chin slightly. "Or she doesn't survive long out here, throughout the day." Martha found herself settling into the rhythm of the household. She helped Anna with her lessons, showed Dale how to properly seal preserve jars, and even managed to make a simple supper from their modest stores. As the sun began to set, Dale hitched up Martha's horse for her return journey. Anna clung to Martha's skirts, her face pleading. "You'll come back tomorrow, won't you, please?" Martha glanced at Dale, who nodded slightly. "If you'd be willing," he said quietly. "We'd be grateful for your help." The ride home was peaceful, prairie grass golden in the fading light. Martha's heart felt fuller than it had in years, though she hardly dared examine why. In her room that night, she knelt beside her bed as she hadn't done since childhood. "Lord," she whispered into the darkness, "I don't understand your ways. But that child," she paused, remembering Anna's bright face. "Maybe that child needs me. And maybe that's purpose enough." The moon cast silver light through her window as Martha climbed into bed, her mind already turning to tomorrow's tasks at the Zook farm. For the first time in years, she fell asleep without crying. The Sunday morning sun cast long shadows across Main Street as townsfolk made their way to church service. Martha's heart tightened as she noticed the sideways glances and hushed conversations that fell silent when she passed. She straightened her back, though her cheeks burned with familiar shame. Near the church steps, Mrs. Peterson leaned close to her friend, her voice carrying just loud enough for Martha to hear. "Did you know she's been up at that Amish man's farm every day this week? Desperate times call for desperate measures, I suppose." "Buying herself a family," her companion replied with a smirk. "Since no proper man would have her." Martha's fingers clutched her Bible tighter as she climbed the steps. Inside, she found her usual back pew, but before she could settle in, a small voice called out, "Miss Martha." Anna Zook waved from several rows ahead, her face bright with genuine joy. "Come sit with us." Heads turned throughout the congregation. Martha hesitated, but Anna's earnest smile drew her forward. Dale moved aside, making space between himself and his daughter. As Martha sat, Anna's small hand slipped into hers, holding on tight through the opening hymn. Throughout the service, whispers rustled like autumn leaves. Martha kept her chin high, though her face burned. She noticed Dale's steady presence beside her, his calm demeanor unchanged by the stares and murmurs around them. When service ended, Martha rose to leave, but Anna wouldn't release her hand. They walked out together, an unlikely trio that drew every eye. On the church steps, Martha's father intercepted them, his face dark with anger. "Zook," he growled, "I need a word about my daughter." Dale faced him calmly. "Of course, Mr. Keating. What kind of game are you playing?" Martha's father demanded. "Taking advantage of a—" He glanced at Martha, his lip curling slightly. "A lonely woman's desperation?" Martha's breath caught in her throat. Around them, people slowed their departure, eager to witness the confrontation. Dale's voice remained steady. "Sir, your daughter's presence has been nothing but a blessing to my child. There's no game being played here. A blessing?" Her father scoffed. "Or cheap labor? Everyone knows you can't afford a proper housekeeper." "Papa." "Please," Martha whispered, but Anna spoke up first. "Miss Martha teaches me," the child declared proudly. "She helps me read Bible verses and shows me how to make pie crust just like—" Anna's voice faltered before adding softly, "just like Mama used to." A heavy silence fell over the gathered crowd. Martha's father worked his jaw, glancing between his daughter and the Amish widower. Finally, he turned away without another word, leaving Martha standing straight back in the autumn sunlight. That evening, Martha sat at the Zook's rough-hewn table, a lamp casting warm light over Anna's primer. The child's finger traced each word carefully as she read from Matthew. "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." "Very good," Martha encouraged. "Now, what do you think that means?" Anna's forehead wrinkled in concentration. "That God loves people who are gentle." "That's right," Martha smiled, smoothing Anna's hair. even when others aren't gentle to them. From his chair by the fire, Dale watched silently. His eyes held a softness Martha had never noticed before, though he said nothing. The lamplight caught the silver threads in his dark beard as he turned back to his Bible, leaving Martha to wonder about the quiet changes taking place in this simple home. Hours later, Martha walked home beneath a vast prairie sky. Stars wheeled overhead, bright and distant, while crickets sang in the tall grass. The evening's peace felt at odds with the morning's cruel whispers, which still echoed in her mind. Buying herself a family, desperate, no proper man, she paused on the path, looking back toward the distant glow of the Zook's lamp. In that humble cabin, she had found something she never expected. A child's trust, a quiet man's respect, and moments of grace that somehow made the town's mockery hurt less. Yet the weight of reputation pressed heavy on her heart. Would she always be the subject of sneers and whispers? Would every kindness shown to her be seen as charity to the desperate fat girl? The stars offered no answer as Martha resumed her walk home, each step carrying her between two worlds, the cruel certainty of public scorn and the tender possibility of private joy. The autumn days grew shorter as Martha settled into a gentle rhythm at the Zook farm. Each morning brought new tasks, mending torn shirts, showing Anna how to measure flour for bread, and sketching plans in the dirt for spring's garden beds. The simple work filled her hands while healing something deeper in her heart. One crisp afternoon, Martha sat on the cabin's front step, working at a worn piece of harness leather. Her fingers moved steadily, pushing the thick needle through the tough material. Dale worked nearby, replacing wooden slats on the barn door. The comfortable silence between them felt like a warm blanket against October's chill. "I reckon folks in town are still talking," Martha said quietly, her eyes fixed on her stitching. The words had been weighing on her mind all week, begging to be spoken. "About me being here about," she paused, swallowing hard. "About why a woman like me spends so much time with your family." Dale set down his hammer and turned to face her. The late afternoon sun caught in his beard as he considered her words. "What folks say," he began slowly, choosing his words with care. "It doesn't change what I see." Martha's hand stilled on the leather. "And what do you see?" "I see strength," Dale said simply. "Not the kind that shows on the outside, but the kind that matters." He gestured toward the cabin where Anna was playing. "My daughter has smiled more this past week than she has in months. That kind of joy, it comes from something true." Martha felt tears prick at her eyes, but before she could respond, the cabin door burst open. Anna bounded out, clutching a piece of paper to her chest. "I made something," she announced proudly. "Close your eyes, both of you." Martha and Dale exchanged glances, then obediently closed their eyes. Paper rustled as Anna held up her creation. "Now look." Martha opened her eyes to see Anna's drawing. 3 figures stood hand in hand outside a simple house. A tall man in a dark hat, a little girl with yellow braids, and between them, a woman in a blue dress. Above the picture, Anna had carefully printed, "My family." Dale's face flushed red beneath his beard. Martha's heart seemed to skip a beat as she studied the child's artwork. The woman in the drawing was full-figured like herself, but smiling broadly, surrounded by love. "See?" Anna pointed eagerly. "That's Papa, and that's me, and that's you, Miss Martha. We're all together." "It's beautiful, Anna," Martha managed to say, her voice thick with emotion. Dale said nothing, but his eyes held a warmth that made Martha's cheeks heat. That evening, as Martha helped prepare supper, the cabin felt different. Laughter came easier as Anna told stories about her day's adventures. Dale joined in with quiet chuckles, his usual reserve softening around the edges. The simple meal of beans and cornbread tasted like a feast. After the dishes were cleared, they sat by the fire. Anna dozed in Martha's lap while Dale read from his Bible. The flames cast dancing shadows on the walls, and Martha felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. a feeling of belonging she hardly dared to name. When the fire burned low, Martha knew it was time to leave. She gathered her shawl, careful not to wake Anna, who had fallen asleep. "I should head back," she said softly. "It's getting late." Dale nodded, rising to walk her to her wagon. Outside, crickets sang in the tall grass and stars dotted the vast prairie sky. As Dale helped her up onto the wagon seat, his hand steady and strong, Martha felt torn between two powerful forces, the hope blooming in her heart and the fear of what tomorrow might bring. "Thank you," Dale said quietly, "for everything you do here." Martha gathered the reins, grateful for the darkness that hid her burning cheeks. "I'm the one who should be thankful," she whispered. The wagon wheels creaked as Martha started her journey back to town. Behind her, a lamp still glowed in the cabin window like a beacon in the night. Her heart felt full to bursting with emotions she couldn't quite sort out. Joy at Anna's innocent love, warmth from Dale's quiet praise, and beneath it all, a trembling fear that this happiness might somehow slip away. The crickets accompanied her all the way home, their song a reminder of the peaceful evening she'd left behind. Martha held tight to the memory of Anna's drawing, of Dale's gentle words, of the way they'd felt like a real family gathered around the fire. Whatever tomorrow might bring, she had this moment to hold on to, this precious glimpse of what could be. Precious glimpse of what could be. 3 weeks after Anna's drawing, Martha stood in Dale's kitchen, checking the roasting chickens one last time. The aroma of sage and butter filled the small cabin. Autumn sunlight streamed through the windows, catching dust motes that danced above fresh-baked pies cooling on the windowsill. "They're coming," Anna called from her perch by the front window. "I see wagons on the road." Martha's hands trembled slightly as she smoothed her best dress. She and Dale had decided to host this Sunday meal together, extending invitations to neighbors near and far. It was a bold step, one that made her heart flutter with both hope and anxiety. Dale appeared beside her, dressed in his dark Sunday clothes. "The table looks perfect," he said quietly, nodding at the carefully arranged settings. Martha had used her mother's techniques for stretching the good dishes, mixing plain tin plates with borrowed china to make everything match somehow. The first wagon rolled into the yard. Martha took a deep breath, steadying herself as Anna burst through the door to greet their guests. The Hendersons stepped down from their wagon, looking uncertain but curious. Their teenage daughters whispered behind their hands until Mrs. Henderson shushed them with a stern look. "Welcome." Anna bounced on her toes, her face glowing. "Come meet my mom." She grabbed Mrs. Henderson's hand, pulling her toward Martha. "She made chicken and pies and everything." Martha's cheeks burned at Anna's words, but she forced herself to stand tall. "We're so glad you came," she said, gesturing toward the cabin. "Please, come inside." More wagons arrived, the Petersons, the Millers, even the station master and his wife. Each time, Anna proudly introduced Martha as her mom, her innocent joy making it impossible for guests to react with anything but awkward smiles and polite nods. Inside, Martha kept busy, bringing out steaming platters of roast chicken, golden cornbread, and vegetables from the garden's last harvest. The cabin filled with the murmur of conversation and the scrape of chairs as everyone found their places around the expanded table and borrowed benches. Before the meal began, Dale rose to his feet. The room fell silent, expecting the usual brief grace. Instead, Dale's voice rang out clear and strong. "Lord," he began, his hands clasped before him, "we thank you for this food and the hands that prepared it. We thank you especially for sending Martha into our lives." His voice grew solemn with conviction. "She has brought light back into our home and joy to my daughter's heart. We are blessed by her presence." Martha stared down at her lap, her vision blurring with tears. Around the table, she could feel the neighbors' surprise at Dale's words. The silence held for a moment before someone murmured "Amen," and then the clatter of plates and passing of food began. To Martha's amazement, the meal flowed easily. The food was hearty and plentiful, And soon conversation bubbled up naturally. Mrs. Henderson praised the chicken's tenderness, asking Martha for her secret. The station master's wife admired the pies, especially the apple with its perfect crust. Even the teenage girls stopped whispering and joined in the general talk. As the afternoon stretched on, people moved outside to enjoy the mild weather. Lanterns were lit as the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the yard. Children played tag between the trees while adults gathered in small groups, talking and laughing. Martha moved among them, refilling cups and offering pieces of pie. And for the first time, she felt something new in their gazes. Not tolerance or pity, but genuine respect. The last wagon departed just as dusk settled fully over the prairie. Martha stood in the doorway, watching the lanterns bounce away down the dirt road. Her feet ached from hours of standing, but her heart felt lighter than it had in years. Dale touched her elbow gently. "Thank you," he said softly, "for everything today. For being here with us." Martha turned to meet his gaze, finding something unspoken in his eyes that made her breath catch. Before she could respond, Anna tugged at her skirts. "Can we sit by the fire, Mom, please?" They settled in their usual places, Dale in his chair, Martha on the bench, and Anna curled up against her lap. The firelight flickered across the cabin walls, and a deep peace settled over the room. Even the night's shadows, gathering beyond the lantern's reach, seemed less threatening than before. Anna's breathing soon grew steady with sleep, her small hand clutching Martha's skirt. Martha stroked the child's hair, marveling at how natural it felt now, this quiet moment of family. Though doubts still lurked at the edges of her mind, for now, she allowed herself to simply be present in this moment of acceptance and belonging. The morning after the Sunday meal dawned cold and gray. While Martha helped Anna prepare for school, Mrs. Abigail Crandall stood at her fence, speaking in low tones to her neighbor. Her words carried on the autumn wind like poison. "Mark my words," she hissed. "That woman's got her eye on more than just playing mother. Dale Zook's got 40 acres and a growing homestead. She's cleverer than folks give her credit for." By midday, whispers slithered through town like snakes. Martha felt the change as she walked to the general store. Friendly nods from the Sunday meal turned to sideways glances. Behind counter displays, women's heads bent together, voices hushed but eyes sharp. The real blow came 2 days later. Anna burst through the cabin door, her face streaked with tears, her slate clutched tight against her chest. Martha dropped her mending and rushed to the child. "What happened, sweetheart?" Martha gathered Anna close, feeling the girl's shoulders shake between sobs. Anna choked out the cruel words. "Tommy and James, they said I'm just the fat woman's orphan girl." Her voice broke. "They said you're only pretending to be my mama because nobody else would have you." Martha's heart cracked, but she kept her voice steady. Those boys were wrong to say such things. She stroked Anna's hair, though her own hands trembled. "So very wrong." Dale returned early from the fields, his face darkening at the sight of his daughter's tears. After Anna explained again, he grabbed his hat, stalking toward town with thunder in his steps. He found James's father at the livery stable. "Your boy had no right," Dale said, his voice tight with anger. "My daughter came home crying." The man barely looked up from his work. "Boys will be boys," he drawled. "Can't blame them for speaking what everyone's thinking." Dale's hands clenched, but he remembered his Amish teaching of peace. He turned away, but the man's chuckle followed him down the street. That afternoon, Preacher Griggs paid an unexpected visit to the farm. He found Dale splitting wood behind the cabin. "Brother Zook," the preacher began, his face grave. "The community has concerns." Dale set down his axe. "About Martha?" "About appearances." Preacher Griggs cleared his throat. "A single woman spending so much time here, caring for your child. It raises questions of propriety. And if you're considering her as a wife," he paused meaningfully, "well, there are other suitable matches available." women better suited to help build a proper Christian household. Inside the cabin, Martha stood frozen by the window, every word cutting like knives. She pressed her hand against her mouth, holding back tears as the preacher continued to list her shortcomings, wrapped in concerned phrases about the community's reputation. That evening, supper sat barely touched on their plates. Anna pushed her food around listlessly, while Dale's attempts at conversation fell flat. Martha watched them both, her heart heavy with guilt. The joy of Sunday's meal felt like a distant dream, shattered by reality's cruel awakening. As she washed the dishes, Martha's hands moved mechanically while her mind churned. She had been foolish to think she could escape the town's judgment. Worse, she had dragged Dale and Anna into her shame. The whispers that had only hurt her before now wounded this precious child who had trusted her with the name Mom. She glanced at Anna, who sat by the fire working on her letters. Dale bent close, guiding her hand with gentle patience. They looked so right together, father and daughter. They deserved peace, not the storm of gossip she had brought to their door. Martha squared her shoulders, forcing down the ache in her chest. She knew what she had to do. Tomorrow she would make excuses to stay away. She would gradually withdraw, letting the bonds between them fade before they could be torn apart more violently. It would hurt. Oh, how it would hurt, but she would not allow her presence to cause them more suffering. The fire crackled, casting long shadows on the cabin walls. Outside, a coyote called lonely across the prairie darkness. Martha wiped her hands slowly on her apron, trying to memorize every detail of this moment. The warmth of the room, Anna's quiet humming, the familiar creak of Dale's chair. Soon, these would be only memories, but at least Dale and Anna would be free from the cruel whispers that had followed Martha all her life. For now, though, she still had this one evening. Martha picked up her mending, settling into her usual spot by the fire. She would carry these moments in her heart, even after she found the strength to walk away. The afternoon sun beat down on the dusty street as Martha's father stumbled out of the saloon, his face flushed from whiskey. A group of men gathered near the hitching post, including Mrs. Crandall's husband and the preacher's son. Martha's father swayed, grabbing a post for balance. Tried to do Dale Zook a favor, he slurred, loud enough for half the street to hear. Told him to take my Martha off my hands, he laughed bitterly. What else can you do with a useless fat daughter? Figured the plain folk wouldn't be so particular. Martha, who had been heading to the general store, froze behind a wagon. Her basket trembled in her hands as her father continued. Even offered to throw in some cattle as dowry. He spat in the dirt. But seems even an Amish widower's got his pride. The men exchanged uncomfortable glances, but a few chuckled. Mrs. Crandall, sweeping her store's porch nearby, pressed her lips together in a satisfied smile. Martha's vision blurred. She turned and fled, not caring who saw her tears now. Her father's words chased her down the street. Useless, fat, unwanted. The betrayal cut deeper than any town gossip ever had. She didn't stop running until she reached Dale's farm, her chest heaving. Anna looked up from feeding the chickens, her face brightening. Martha, you're early today. The child rushed over, then stopped short at Martha's expression. What's wrong? Martha forced a smile. Just tired from the walk, sweet girl. She smoothed her skirts with trembling hands. Let's get supper started. Dale came in from the fields as the sun began to set. He found Martha kneading bread with unusual force, her eyes red-rimmed. Anna sat at the table, watching Martha with worried glances. I heard what happened in town, Dale said quietly, Martha's hands stilled in the dough. News travels fast, she whispered. Your father had no right. He had every right, Martha cut in. I am his daughter. His burden to bear. The words tasted bitter as gall. Dale stepped closer. Martha, look at me. When she didn't move, he continued anyway. Your worth isn't measured by your father's scorn or the town's cruel words, isn't it? Martha's voice cracked. When everyone sees the same thing, speaks the same truth, they don't speak truth, Dale interrupted firmly. They speak fear and meanness. You are kind, capable, and, he hesitated, then finished softly, precious to us. Martha's eyes filled again. She turned away, unable to bear his gentleness. They ate supper quietly, the silence broken only by the clink of spoons and Anna's occasional attempts at conversation. As Martha cleared the dishes, she felt the weight of the child's worried gaze. Later, Martha sat by the fire, watching the flames dance. Anna had finished her lessons but lingered nearby, playing with her rag doll. Martha? Anna's small voice quavered. Are you going to leave us? Martha's heart clenched. She looked at the child's face, so open and trusting, filled with love she didn't deserve. Anna, the words stuck in her throat. Please don't go. Anna crawled into her lap, wrapping thin arms around Martha's neck. I need you. Papa needs you too, even if he doesn't say it. Martha held Anna close, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. How could she explain that sometimes love wasn't enough? That sometimes leaving was the only gift you could give? The ride home that night seemed longer than usual. Martha's horse plodded through the darkness while overhead, stars wheeled in the vast prairie sky. Finally, she reached the ranch house, dark except for a single lamp dot in her narrow bed. Martha lay awake, listening to her father's heavy snores through the thin wall. Each rasping breath reminded her of his words, his contempt. She could not stay here where she was despised. Could not keep imposing herself on Dale and Anna, no matter how much it would hurt to leave them. Her heart ached at the thought of Anna's tears, of Dale's quiet disappointment. But perhaps that was better than watching their reputations sink alongside hers. Better than seeing Anna teased at school, or Dale questioned by the church elders. Martha turned her face into the pillow, allowing herself one moment of weakness as tears soaked the fabric. Tomorrow she would begin planning her departure. She had a little money saved from helping neighbors with their accounts. Perhaps she could find work in one of the larger towns down the rail line, where no one knew her name or her shame. In the darkness, Martha's fingers traced the rough quilt her mother had made before she died. Guide me, she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was praying to her mother or to God. Show me how to do what's right. Her father's snores continued, oblivious to the heart breaking in the next room. The next morning dawned clear and cold, frost sparkling on the grass as Martha made her way to church. Whispers followed her up the wooden steps, carried on the crisp autumn air. Did you hear what old Keating said about his daughter? Trying to buy herself a family, even offered cattle as dowry. Martha kept her eyes fixed ahead, clutching her Bible closer. Inside, the familiar sense of wood polish and lamp oil usually brought comfort, but today they seemed to mock her with memories of better times. She chose a back pew, deliberately separate from where Dale and Anna sat near the front. Anna turned, searching for her with worried eyes, but Martha pretended not to notice. Better to start the separation now, she thought, though her heart ached at the child's confused expression. Preacher Grigg stood at his pulpit, sunlight streaming through the windows behind him as he opened his Bible. His sermon dwelt long on the dangers of pride and presumption, of thinking too highly of oneself. Martha felt each word like a stone, though she knew they weren't meant for her. She had never thought highly of herself at all. The congregation shifted and murmured through the service. Mrs. Crandall's fan fluttered rapidly whenever she glanced Martha's way, as if to cool herself from the scandal of Martha's very presence. After the final hymn, Martha remained seated while others filed out. Through the open doors, she saw Preacher Griggs draw Dale aside, their heads bent in serious conversation. Though she couldn't make out every word, fragments drifted back to her. Consider carefully, Brother Zook, God's true leading or merely convenience, reputation of our community. Dale's responses were too quiet to hear, but his stance was stiff, uncomfortable. Martha's cheeks burned. She had brought this good man nothing but trouble and questioning, Afternoon at the farm passed in a haze of routine, helping with dinner, reading to Anna, checking the chicken coop. But everything felt hollow now, knowing these would be among her last days here. As evening approached, Anna grew increasingly clingy, as if sensing Martha's thoughts of leaving. The child barely left her side, holding onto her skirts while Martha worked, pressing close during Bible reading. "Tell me another story," Anna begged when bedtime came. "Please don't go yet." Martha's throat tightened as she smoothed Anna's hair. "Just one more, then sleep." She sang the old lullabies her mother had once sung to her, her voice soft in the lamplight. Anna fought to keep her eyes open, but eventually drifted off, one hand still clutching Martha's dress, carefully extracting herself. Martha tucked the blanket around Anna's shoulders and pressed a kiss to her forehead. "God keep you, precious girl," she whispered. In the main room, Dale sat by the fire, staring into the flames. Martha took her usual chair opposite him, knowing this might be one of their last quiet evenings together. "I cannot stay," she said finally, her voice barely audible above the crackling wood. Dale looked up sharply. "Martha, no, please listen." She twisted her hands in her lap. "I've brought nothing but disgrace to you and Anna. The whole town questions your judgment. The preacher doubts your faith. Your reputation suffers more each day I'm here. I care nothing for reputation," Dale said, but his voice held uncertainty. "You should care. You're trying to build a life here, raise Anna properly. How can you do that if the community scorns you?" "We could," Dale hesitated, pride and fear warring in his expression. "Things might change, given time," Martha smiled sadly. "Your kindness does you credit. But we both know the truth. I'm not what you need. You're exactly what Anna needs. Anna needs a mother the town respects, not one they mock." Martha stood, unable to bear his gaze any longer. "I'll find work somewhere else. Somewhere no one knows me." Dale rose too, taking a step toward her. "Martha, But whatever he might have said died on his lips. The fire popped and hissed in the silence between them. Outside, a coyote called lonely across the prairie. Martha waited, heart pounding, but Dale said nothing more. "I'll come tomorrow to say goodbye to Anna," she said finally. "It's better this way." Dale's hands clenched at his sides, but his pride and fear of scandal held him mute. Martha walked to the door, each step heavy with finality. "God keep you both," she whispered, and slipped out into the night. The stars overhead blurred as tears filled her eyes. By the time she reached her father's ranch, her decision was set. She would pack her few belongings tonight and take the morning train east. Better a clean break than a long, painful fading. In her room, Martha pulled out her carpet bag and began to fold her dresses. Each one held memories now. This one she'd worn while teaching Anna to bake, that one when they'd planted the kitchen garden. But memories were all she could keep. The rest she had to leave behind. Martha's fingers trembled as she folded her calico dresses in the dim lamplight of her bedroom. The house creaked around her, settling into night's quiet. From down the hall came her father's heavy snoring, thick with whiskey. She had waited until well after supper, after watching him drink himself into his usual stupor before beginning to pack. Her carpet bag wasn't large, but it held enough. 2 dresses, her mother's Bible, a handful of letters from her childhood friend in Ohio. The rest she would leave behind. The fewer reminders of her life here, the better at her small writing desk. Martha smoothed a piece of paper and dipped her pen. Ink splashed, marking the page with her shaking hands. She took a deep breath and began to write. "Dear Dale and Anna, these months with you have been the sweetest of my life. But I cannot allow my presence to bring more shame upon your home. Anna deserves a mother the town respects, and Dale, you deserve peace in the community you've chosen. Please know that my leaving is born of love, not lack of it. You are better without me. May God keep you both. Martha." She folded the paper carefully, sealing it with a drop of wax. The letter felt inadequate, but words could never fully capture the ache in her heart. The grandfather clock in the hall struck midnight as Martha crept down the back stairs, carpet bag in hand. Her father's snores echoed through the dark house. She paused in the kitchen, looking one last time at the familiar walls, the worn table where she had eaten countless meals. Then she slipped out into the moonlit yard. Her small wagon stood ready by the barn, hitched hours earlier when her father wasn't watching. Martha secured her bag beneath the seat and checked the horse's harness one final time. The autumn air bit cold through her shawl as she climbed up, gathering the reins. "Goodbye," she whispered to the sleeping house, then clicked softly to her horse. The wagon wheels crunched on gravel as they turned toward the road leading out of town. Meanwhile, at the Zook farm, Anna jerked awake from a troubled dream. Something felt wrong. The moonlight streaming through her window cast strange shadows on the wall. She reached for Martha's shawl, the one Martha often draped over her at bedtime, but her fingers found only empty air. "Papa!" Anna's cry pierced the night. "Papa, wake up!" Dale burst through her door, lamp in hand. "What is it, child?" "Martha's shawl is gone." Anna scrambled from bed, tears starting down her cheeks. "She's leaving us, Papa." "I dreamed it." Dale's heart seized. He had seen the defeat in Martha's eyes earlier, had felt the finality in her goodbye. Fool that he was. He should have known she would try to slip away in the night. "Stay here," he ordered Anna, already striding toward the door. "I'll find her. Bring her back, Papa." Anna called after him. "Please bring her back." Dale's hands shook as he saddled his horse, fumbling with buckles in his haste. The lantern swung wildly from his saddle horn as he mounted, casting crazy shadows across the barn walls. He drove his heels into the horse's flanks, bursting out onto the moonlit road. "Dear Lord," he prayed as they galloped, "don't let me be too late." The road stretched silver before him under the bright harvest moon. His heart pounded in time with his horse's hooves. Which way would she have gone? East, he guessed, toward the railroad town where the morning train would take her far away. Dale pushed his horse harder, the lantern bouncing crazily. Every shadow might be her wagon. Every creak might be her wheels. His throat burned with words he should have spoken hours ago, truths he had been too proud to admit. "Martha!" He called into the night, his voice carrying across the empty fields. "Martha, wait!" But only the wind answered, whispering through the dry autumn grass. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, a wagon rolled steadily eastward, carrying his heart away into the night. Dale rode on, praying with every breath that he would catch her before she disappeared forever. The road unfurled endless before him, and the moon sailed high overhead, witness to his desperate pursuit. The moon cast long shadows across the dirt road as Dale's horse thundered forward. His heart leaped when he spotted a wagon ahead, its outline dark against the starlit sky. Martha's familiar silhouette sat rigid at the reins, her head bowed low. "Martha!" Dale's voice carried across the night air. "Stop, please." Martha's shoulders stiffened at his call, but she didn't slow the wagon. Dale urged his horse faster, drawing alongside until he could reach out and grasp her horse's bridle. The wagon jerked to a halt, wheels creaking in protest. "Let me go, Dale," Martha whispered, her voice thick with tears. She kept her eyes fixed straight ahead, refusing to meet his gaze. "This is best for everyone. Best?" Dale's voice cracked with emotion. "How can running away in the night be best for anyone?" Martha's hands twisted in her lap, knuckles white against the dark fabric of her dress. "You know why." The whispers. The cruel laughter. "Your reputation suffers because of me." Anna faces mockery at school. She drew a shuddering breath. "I won't destroy your lives with my presence. That's not your choice to make," Dale insisted, dismounting to stand beside her wagon. The lantern swung from his saddle, casting shifting shadows across their faces. "It is my choice." Martha's voice rose, edged with pain. I've endured ridicule all my life, but I won't let it touch Anna. She deserves better. You deserve better than a woman who brings only shame to your door. Their argument hung in the night air, weighted with unspoken feelings. Then a small cry split the darkness. Mama! Papa! They turned to see Anna running down the dirt road, her nightgown billowing white in the moonlight, her feet bare and dirty. She stumbled forward, tears streaming down her face. Anna! Martha gasped. Child, what are you doing out here? Anna fell to her knees in the dusty road, hands clasped tight in prayer. Dear God, she sobbed, her young voice carrying clear and strong into the night. Please don't let Martha leave us. She's my mama now, you sent her to us. Please make her stay. Martha's breath caught in her throat. Dale stood frozen, watching his daughter pour out her heart to heaven. I prayed so long for a mama, Anna continued, her words tumbling out between sobs. And you gave us Martha. She makes Papa smile again. She teaches me about your love. Please, God, don't take her away. The child's prayer echoed across the empty fields, raw with desperate faith. Martha covered her mouth with trembling fingers, tears spilling down her cheeks. Dale moved then, reaching up to take Martha's hand firmly in his. His touch was warm, steady, certain. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of conviction. You belong with us, Martha, he said softly. Not because we need a housekeeper or because Anna needs a mother. You belong because God brought you to us, and I've been too proud to admit how much I've come to care for you. Dale, Martha tried to pull away, but he held fast. No, he said. Listen to me. I've let fear of gossip and scandal keep me from speaking truth. But Anna's right, you're family now. And I won't let you disappear into the night because of cruel tongues and small minds. Anna scrambled up from the road and ran to the wagon, clinging to Martha's skirts. Don't leave me, Mom, she begged. Please don't leave. Martha's resistance crumbled at the title, Mom. She had never thought to hear that word directed at her, had never dared dream of such love. Yet here it was, offered freely by this child's pure heart. How can I stay? She whispered, though her resolve was wavering. The town will never accept me. Then let them talk, Dale said firmly. We'll face it together, as a family. That's what matters, not their words, but our bond. The night air grew still around them, as if heaven itself held its breath. Martha looked down at Anna's tear-stained face, then at Dale's steady gaze. In that holy moment, she felt something shift in her heart, like a key turning in a long-rusted lock. Dale's grip on her hand tightened. The certainty in his eyes told her everything. He could not let her go. Would not let her go. Not now, not ever. Anna pressed closer, her small hands warm and insistent. Stay, Mom, she whispered. Stay with us. The morning sun filtered through the church's dusty windows as Dale led Martha and Anna up the wooden steps. Martha's heart thundered in her chest, her palms damp against her clean calico dress. The murmur of voices inside fell silent as they entered. Preacher Grigg stood at his pulpit, eyes widening at their appearance. The congregation turned in their pews, faces a mix of surprise and curiosity. Martha felt the familiar urge to shrink away, to hide from their stares, but Dale's hand remained steady at her elbow. They walked down the center aisle, their boots echoing on the plank floor. Anna skipped beside them, her Sunday ribbons bouncing, seemingly unaware of the tension in the air. When they reached the front, Dale turned to face the gathered townspeople. Brothers and sisters, he began, his voice clear and strong in the hushed sanctuary. I stand before you today to declare what God has done in my life. He took Martha's trembling hand in his. The Lord has blessed me with a woman of remarkable strength, boundless mercy, and deep love. Martha's breath caught as Dale continued, his words ringing with conviction. I choose Martha Keating as my wife, not from duty, not for land or convenience, but because God has shown me her true worth. She has brought light back into our home and joy to my daughter's heart." Tears welled in Martha's eyes as she waited for the snickers, the cruel whispers she had known all her life. But the congregation remained silent, heads bowing one by one in respectful acknowledgement. Preacher Grigg stepped down from his pulpit, his stern face softened with something like shame. "I confess," he said slowly, "that I doubted God's hand in this. I was wrong." He raised his hands over them. "Let us pray for this family, united by divine grace." The congregation bowed their heads as the preacher's prayer filled the church. "Lord, bless this union born of your wisdom. Grant them strength against trial, joy in their love, and peace in their home." Anna could contain herself no longer. She threw her arms around Martha's waist, her face glowing with pure happiness. "Mom!" she declared proudly, the word ringing out clear and sweet in the sacred space. This time no one laughed. No one mocked. Instead, several women dabbed at their eyes with handkerchiefs. Martha felt something shift within her soul, a lifetime of shame falling away like autumn leaves. Here, before God and community, she stood not as an object of ridicule, but as a woman worthy of love and respect. Dale's grip on her hand tightened, and she saw in his eyes the same certainty that had stopped her on that moonlit road. The morning light streamed through the windows, painting golden patterns on the wooden floor. In that holy moment, Martha knew that gossip would die in the face of truth openly declared, and love publicly honored. The autumn winds gave way to winter's first chill as Martha and Dale exchanged vows in the small church. Sunlight streamed through frosted windows, casting a gentle glow on the simple ceremony. Neighbors filled the pews, their faces now warm with genuine smiles rather than mockery. Even Mrs. Crandall, who had once spread cruel rumors, dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Back at the farmstead, Martha stood in the doorway of what was now truly her home. The cabin welcomed her with its rough-hewn beams and familiar scent of pine. Her hands traced the new curtains she'd sewn, cheerful squares of yellow calico that brightened the windows. Along the shelves, neat rows of preserves caught the light, jewel-toned jars of peaches, beans, and pickled vegetables she'd put up for winter. In the center of the table sat her mother's Bible, its leather worn smooth by years of faithful hands. Martha had placed it there that morning, marking their new beginning with God's word at the heart of their home. The sight of it there, between Dale's cup and Anna's plate, brought tears to her eyes. Outside, Anna's laughter rang clear in the crisp air as she arranged her dolls on the porch steps. "This is Papa," she explained to her favorite rag doll, "and this is Mama Martha, and this is me. We're all family now." The words made Martha's heart swell as she watched through the window, remembering the lonely child who had first grabbed her hand that night at the social. Dale worked steadily on the cabin's new addition, his hammer striking a rhythm that echoed across the yard. The sound of his whistling, an old hymn tune, drifted in with the breeze. Every few minutes, he'd glance toward the kitchen window where Martha worked, as if reassuring himself she was really there. His eyes held a contentment that made her cheeks warm with joy. As evening settled over the farm, the three gathered around the supper table. Lamplight cast a golden glow over their faces as they bowed their heads. Dale's prayer was simple but profound. "Lord, we thank you for bringing us together, for making us whole." Martha's fingers brushed the familiar grain of the table as she opened her eyes. How different it felt from those bitter nights of ridicule and loneliness. Now the very walls seemed to embrace her, and the cup before her brimmed with blessing instead of tears. The first snowflakes began to drift past the windows as they cleared the dishes. Anna helped dry each plate, chattering about tomorrow's plans with the easy confidence of a child secure in love. Martha watched her, marveling at how naturally they had become mother and daughter. Later, as the fire crackled in the hearth, Anna snuggled between them on the settle. Her small hand found Martha's larger one, holding tight. "I prayed so hard," she whispered, her voice heavy with sleep, "and God gave me my mom." Martha's eyes met Dale's over their daughter's head. In his steady gaze, she saw reflected all the dignity and love she'd once thought forever beyond her reach. The snow fell silently outside, but here within these walls, her heart was finally, truly home. Thank you for being here. If something in this story stayed with you, I'd love to see you again. Subscribe, and tomorrow I'll bring you another story crafted with heart. With heart.